Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing High Noon, directed by Fred Zyman, The Wild Bunch by Sam Peckinpah. We have newly released They Cloned Tyrone by Jewel Taylor, Barbie by Greta Gerwig, and finally, Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan. It's going to be a great show, folks, so stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay on me, or on my end, this side of the table. How was your week of movies? Because this is a big one. We have Barbenheimer. We have Westerns coming in.
Yeah.
We have a complete surprise I wasn't even aware of coming in. With They Cloned Tyrone. A big weekend, though.
I'll tell you what, I was extremely happy with this week. Barbenheimer did not disappoint, and I was able to find some excellent films to round out the week.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was really reflecting on this week with my note writing process. I don't know. Last year, my favorite week was that Crimes of the Future episode. This year, I think it's this week.
Really?
This is a big week.
So far, at least.
Sure.
Halfway through the year.
Right. We still have
That's big
Scorsese's
talk,
film.
though.
We still have Dune 2. So, there would be others. But how Barbenheimer was a wild combination and was able to find just like other good films to pair with it. I was really happy this week.
Yeah, this weekend, so they were kind of expected to be potentially both do over 100 million. And I would have been surprised. Like, I was kind of surprised to hear that about Barbie, but could see it.
Sure.
Christopher Nolan, I was thinking that would almost be a little bit of a stretch, just knowing what this film is. I feel like how it's tracking a little bit.
3 hours, less slots.
And sure enough, I mean, it only ended up making $82.5 million, but it's still $82.5 million. And then Barbie, opening weekend of $160 million.
Yeah.
Blew away expectations. It's going to continue to be big, I think.
I know, yeah. There's something of a cultural impact with it.
Big time, yeah.
I went opening night on Friday, and I mean, it was almost a Rocky Horror Picture Show type of event. Everyone was wearing pink. People were selling pink cowboy hats outside the theater. There was it was more of an event to go to, which is great.
I wasn't quite expecting it.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it either. But
at this point, with how much they spent on marketing, I knew it was going to do well.
Right.
But and by the way, how did the movie break down? All the IMAXs were locked down by Oppenheimer, correct?
Yes. I think Barbie had the Dolbys. All the IMAXs were Oppenheimer.
That's how they dished it out.
And Lord knows where Dead Reckoning Part 1 went.
I feel so bad.
If anyone got their lunch eaten, it's old Tom Cruise.
And you can kind of see it coming.
Yeah.
Well, that's also why he wanted it released July 4th, don't forget. And he couldn't, so he was trying to get at least 2 weeks in IMAX.
Which makes sense.
But they didn't let him do the release on July 4th for whatever reason, which is kind of a bummer because Sound of Freedom is still killing it.
Right.
It's still third.
I know. Matt D, producer, let me know about it. He said, hey, you're going to be covering this. So
we probably should at this point. It's
might
crushing
be,
it.
Might be catch up that we can get to.
Because it's still number 3 best film.
I know. Unreal.
Poor Dead Reckoning. I want Mission Impossible to do a little bit better at least.
I know. Even though I think we were both a tiny bit lackluster on Dead Reckoning, it was a good movie.
Still a good action.
We had our nitpicks, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it kind of fall on its face,
and
God forbid, even jeopardize part 2.
Part 2 is happening, right. Even with the strike.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just
are saving movies.
We'll jump into it right away. This is our start of Western Month, and it's
the end of Western Month.
Recording this on the 26th. What a great month it's been. But yeah, you managed to get 2 Westerns watched here. Let's start with it right away. We're back in 1952. These are all big name Westerns here. This is High Noon, directed by Fred Zinman, and I'm sure a lot of people maybe haven't seen it, but a lot of people know the name.
Yes. Or even just the concept High Noon. It all comes from this.
Right.
So
let's get into it. How was it?
Yeah. High Noon is considered one of the greatest Westerns of all time, and one of my favorite things to do on the podcast is put that to the test. This won 4 Oscars, including Best Leading Role and Best Editing for the year of 1952, losing out to Best Director to John Ford's The Quiet Man, a fellow heavy hitter Western director, and won Best Picture to Cecil B. DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth. So heavy hitter year for 52.
Yeah. Big actors. Gary Cooper's in it. Grace Kelly's in it. Lloyd Bridges, Jeff Bridges' dad.
Oh, wow.
Is in it. Yep.
Good catch. Wow. I didn't even know. I need
You didn't realize it in an airplane either. He surprised you in an airplane.
Right. Exactly. It's probably one of the older Westerns we have covered in this time period as well. I know we have classics like Stagecoach, 1939 rated, but 52 is still pretty early for what will be the dozens of Westerns produced every year moving forward, basically until the 70s, John Wayne's included. So, in High Noon, Gary Cooper plays a stern Marshal Will Kane, who is in our opening scene getting married and about to hang up his badge. All of this is put on ice when a gang of Kane's previous convicts show up to town without a noose around their necks. Their leader recently was let free and arriving at the train station at high noon. This can only mean trouble, and Kane is the only man that can stop this, despite about to hang up his badge and go on his way with his new Quaker wife, and that is in itself a race against time to get everything all settled up so he can still kind of get on his way. Honestly, one of the best qualities of the screenplay is how the outlaws get untangled. Maybe not the outlaws specifically, but how the drama of the town gets untangled. Kane has a complicated past with the town, and everyone seems to have a perspective on it. And it's not really told to us. The entire film is waiting for high noon.
Right.
So we don't even really get another action sequence until the very end of the film. And how that is filled up is not wasted time. I wouldn't even call it boring for even like, a black and white, 52 film.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it keeps you engaged in kind of untangling a really messy relationship Kane has with the town. Everyone seems to have an opinion on maybe he shouldn't have cleaned up this town. Maybe this town was better with the outlaws. For instance, the hotel. Well, I was a lot busier before Kane cleaned up this town. There are things that are not told and left to unpack as we're kind of waiting around, and it's really a brilliant screenplay for that reason.
And for two reasons, too, for our kind of theory that the 50s are a terrible decade for movies, is because things are one spoon-fed and too happy-go-lucky, and it's just way too cookie-cutter. That's nice that if it's going to be slow, that you're unpacking actually is a decent story then.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some don't mind that Wild West. Some like that profit that they could get off of outlaws and being a wild town. So I think there's an interesting subversion in how a lawful marshal is seen and how we expect him to be, but in fact, everyone's opinion is different and leaves him kind of out to, hanging out to dry when it comes around to him kind of rallying up a posse to deal with these outlaws come high noon. So everyone is up to speed on this and has perspective, except Kane's wife, played by Grace Kelly. And I think, again, in a brilliant move, she acts as the audience's eyes, figuring out this messy past. This is not just your cookie cutter. He gets the posse together like a Tombstone. It's not just these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, they're going at it. There's a little bit more of a disparagement of Kane's past with the town, which I thought was really, really great.
It's a good aspect to throw in there.
Absolutely. It was layered in a great way, and on top of Kane, us discovering he's not really the most flawless marshal we expect him to be, we explore that past through character relationships rather than just being spoon-fed or told. So, of course, the names Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly invoke, classic Hollywood style. But looking back at their filmography, I've got to be honest, folks, I haven't really seen anything with them in. No. I know trying hard to look like Gary Cooper, and putting on the Ritz, but that's about it. And maybe, that robs some credibility from me, but honestly, the performances weren't exactly the highlight for me here, despite the Best Actor win for Gary Cooper. I thought they were all good, but I wasn't, really ecstatic with it. we do get a really young Lee Van Cleef, who, in addition to being a podcast favorite, will go on to star in countless iconic Westerns.
Yeah.
I would say where this film, it was lacking, The Wild Bunch was not lacking, and it's in the villains, it's in the criminal element. Unfortunately, the posse of gunslingers here is just kind of lacking some menace. They basically show up in the beginning, they stay at the train station looking tough, and that's about it until the very end. Like we've commented, especially with all the blockbuster popcorn we've been reviewing on the podcast, show me the menacing, show me why they're evil.
Yeah.
And I feel like this was missing that, despite how cool as ice, Lee Van Cleef included, they look just waiting around.
He just needs to be on screen.
He's got those snake eyes.
He's
just
good.
Piercing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're big fans of him.
Yeah. Which maybe that's outrageous to say next to Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly, but
Well, Gary Cooper just has the name behind him for sure here. I feel like he might be, I have not seen this Western actually. I feel like maybe in this role he's about 10 years too old, but it's just the name Gary Cooper that's carrying this along kind of.
And he's been working, he's like a Fred Astaire character, back in the, couple decades before this.
Another reason why we don't have too much, that we don't really have watched him too much or anything like that.
He's not tapping away.
Right.
So, but as far as this lack of menacingness to it, we don't get to see them be intimidating. We're just kind of told about it. Now, obviously, the time spent in examining their relationships with the town, I would have loved to see the same approach done with each of the 4 bad guys. Maybe we see or hear or told in some way about maybe their specific crimes, maybe the dodgy past they had with the town and where Kane got involved and kicked them out, but maybe they have friends in the town that are still there or something like that. Obviously that town focus is key to all my praise for how we piece the story together, but unfortunately it was a lacking element come the finale, because that's basically they show up in the beginning, we check in with them every now and again, and then they're there for the shootout, so come high noon. So Tom, you probably are on the same wavelength by now. I honestly wrote that expecting you to throw out this, but this is very much the same feeling as a year later in 1953, Shane. I can respect how this was probably groundbreaking at the time. I can respect that it is a format that will be built upon and Shoulders of Giants, but in itself maybe not. I didn't love it. That's
okay. That's all right.
Yeah. I was expecting you to throw out Shane.
No, I wasn't getting too Shane vibes from this. Well, we share similar thoughts with Shane, I will 100%. Say. And I wouldn't be surprised if I feel it on here as well. But, okay, I like it.
Yeah, I think I would have to really do a deep dive into earlier Westerns to see, did this really start the come see me at high noon, kind of cliche or trope in Western writing. But nonetheless, it really isn't generic and did so much with its screenplay, and I can respect it for that, even though there are some aspects that were just a little lackluster.
Sure.
I can clearly see the how this movie was foundational back then, and it's certainly still good, but in the endless Western stories that have borrowed from it, the original is slightly duller than expected. We're going to go ahead and give High Noon 1952 a 70 on the dot.
Oh, wow. 70 is actually a pretty good score.
Absolutely.
It has a lot going against it as far as the daily rating score.
Sure.
50s? Western? You've been fair to our Westerns, the few that we've done so far.
Yeah.
70% though, that's pretty good. And it's an hour and 25 minutes.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
I know. This was also a later watch in the week, so I was thankful for that, of course, with the colossal 3-hour Oppenheimer,
And kind of long Wild Bunch, honestly.
Oh, very true. Wild Bunch was very long.
It was longer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I watched a longer version of it too, to be honest.
Director's cut.
I think I watched a bit, looking at this, what the official time is to what I watched. So, let's just jump 70% High Noon. I think that's a great score. Yeah. That's fantastic. And you've managed to see a Western I have not seen now, which is also impressive. Bit of a milestone.
Look at that.
Let's jump ahead. This is 1969 now, so just before the 70s kick off with those Westerns. But this is The Wild Bunch, directed by Sam Peckinpah. These two directors I'm not too familiar with, whether it be Fred Zineman or Peckinpah. But The Wild Bunch has a lot of big names on it. The version I watched was 2 hours and 25 minutes. Okay. This is saying 2:15.
Oh, interesting.
So like I said, I watched it. Let's get into it right away.
Sure.
You just said that you liked it better. than High Noon.
Yeah.
How much did you like it?
Oh, I really liked Wild Bunch. Once again, folks, I mean, this is on almost every top 10 Western list. So because watching these were so pushed back this month, I was going for the throat. We're going for some heavy hitters on our 2 slots. And who knows, maybe I'll tackle some Westerns into August as well.
Okay.
So,
hey, don't be afraid to sprinkle them throughout the year for us.
a little bit less horror.
Ooh, I mean, just whatever, I mean, springtime, wintertime.
Springtime Western.
52 weeks in the year,
Yeah.
By the way, are you using my curated list at all?
Yes, I was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Wild Bunch was actually the only one remaining on my list.
Cool. Okay.
I think High Noon was on yours. So,
Wild Bunch was not on mine?
I think it might have been. I don't know. I know I had Wild Bunch aside because I saw some stuff for its cinematography. So.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Now, like you said, though, Tom, no experience with the director.
Yeah.
He did direct a few episodes of The Rifleman. Tom, would you...
He did? The Rifleman, starring Chuck Connors.
So
Love that show.
Maybe we'll do a Rifleman special, the one TV show we'll cover.
You do the Rifleman, and I've been getting severe thoughts on the morning show.
Oh,
so
really?
that would be a great.
There you go.
Maybe an April Fool's Day. We'll
We'll do TV on April Fools. But folks, I have very little to complain about here. This is basically a Western version of Heat. It's like if Michael Mann directed a Western.
Wow.
The action is so good. I was in love with the shootouts. I was in love with the focus on criminals, and they're all about planning heist, and they all hate each other, but you see the camaraderie so clearly.
Big time, yeah.
Again, above all else, the shootouts were amazing. I was sold. I mean, this is a good Western, a good action movie, a good crime movie. Really, and I'll return to it towards the end of the review, really put some peer Westerns to shame come 1969, which is, believe it or not, a very big year for Westerns.
Okay.
So we're going to start talk about with editing and action. That's
Yeah.
how you know this movie isn't messing around. And let me tell you, both are amazing. There's a very interesting cuts in action sequences. Oftentimes, shootouts will feel more chaotic than they actually seem to be, or they actually are in the filming of it as well. Mm-hmm. Gunshots will have a slight zoom for impact, which helps a lot with this kind of late 60s blood VFX. Not the best, but I feel like the cinematography really just every impact, it was engaged with it.
I will say that the gore to this film was huge in this.
Yeah.
It was a turnoff for people.
Oh,
so gore wasn't
really?
being quite used like it was up until now.
We're not in the 70s yet, so.
Just the amount of blood spurting stuff like that on the shirts, and just the amount basically of people having that. It was a lot of kind of classic old school Western guys didn't like it for that fact.
That's a good point.
It was definitely ushering in probably sometimes of what we feel in Tarantino. That feeling when he gets hard on the gore or the blood is probably what audiences were feeling back in the day.
Then, yeah. And I will say there's one point in the film that there's a torture that someone gets kind of dragged on the ground, and it was a little intense.
Oh, well, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, but for me, I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. Especially because I feel like if I had to justify this or now and back then a little bit, they're about criminals. I feel like they're bodily harm. They're not our hero. We can see them kind of rough and tumble a little bit. And I think that's where the violence is a little bit earned. So, most of all, though, I did not expect slow motion used to improve the action in 1969. And best of all, folks, it looks amazing. A perfect example is during the opening shootout, a gunslinger gets shot off a roof. And while he is falling, there are multiple cuts away to other parts of the action. Now, as he falls in slow motion, it might look a tiny bit silly, but multiple cuts are layered in the time that it takes him to hit the ground, and it just communicates how fast and deadly this shootout is. By the time this man hits the ground, 5 other people have been killed. Mm-hmm. And it was just like a good like Spielberg edit that he takes the time and he stretches it, he elongates it. It reminded me of Temple of Doom when Indy is sliding under like that rolling like torture machine, and like it cuts away 3 times before he's rolling, and he keeps on getting like closer but farther away. The magic of editing in this action sequence made it more frenetic, made it more lethal in the shootout, where I would not call 60s action lethal. You know what I mean? It's still very Hollywood.
Yeah. So that alone, this editing style, I think this was the first time it was done in major cinema.
Yeah.
So it was groundbreaking for that as well. I'm not as thrilled about either of those things you brought up so far as you. As you say, it seems almost more chaotic than what it actually was shooting or something like that. You know, the actual scene taking place, it feels more chaotic because of editing. I feel like it's a little too chaotic.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a little bit too busy, and it's getting lost in the sauce a little bit, and
loses the literacy of the scene.
And not flickery. It's not that fast, but it's some quick editing. And I think it would really benefit to just have some shots stay a little bit more, because to me, it was busy, and that's what I kept on saying. It was really, really busy, the action scenes.
Interesting.
I think it should have been reined in a little bit. As far as the slow-mo shots, I'm 50-50 on it. And that's really because I feel like half of them worked, half of them didn't. In that same opening, the first kind of big scene that we see.
Yep.
Also, they used a slow-mo for a guy getting shot on a horse and him falling through a window.
Yep.
That looked terrible, in my opinion. And also, they used the same sound effect 3 times in a row. Like someone just clicked the button to keep the sound going.
We get multiple Wilhelm screams as well.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So it was all a bit too messy for me, those two things together. I will say, watching it, I did kind of have opened eyes, because it was a thing of like, this is happening pre-70s.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
This is a serious action movie.
And I feel like it was more, and I'm sure you're going to get into it as well through notes, I felt like it was more impressive and a better action scene, not because of the editing or the slow-mos, but because the amount of people and choreography going on all at once on one scene.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when we get into the Mexican army. There's a lot.
That was the most insane.
yeah. But I think for me, I was surprised how modern it felt.
Sure. Yeah.
They took the challenge of trying to hold away from the comparison, because there's one that comes out this very same year, but they took the challenge of what is normally kind of hard to shoot, actually film a Western shootout without just saying, filming someone shooting and then someone reacting to get shot.
Yeah.
I feel like there is an interplay in the editing that, again, it's just in that what they're trying to communicate of the man takes so long to fall to the ground, and we see these other deaths during it. That's how fast the action is happening.
I can give it that. I'll give it that.
And that's where I'm coming from with this kind of Michael Mann analogy. It really felt like Heat, in the sense that, like, whoa, this bank heist is not only going wrong, but like a lot of people are dying. Like this is bad.
I wouldn't know. I haven't seen Heat yet. I am saving it for some type of special episode. I'm hoping to still do it with you.
It's now on the back burner.
Yes.
I just respected how phenomenal the editing was overall. That
it
one
is a
trick
note
aside.
to me. Yeah. If anyone hasn't seen this or is going to see it, it is a note for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. And refreshing as well. The Wild Bunch tackles the topic of the dying West, which we covered heavily last year. 3 out of the 5 Westerns we covered, in fact. It's 1913 in the story, and we experience this concept through the noose tightening around our gang's neck. The gang is run by Pike Bishop, a stern but aging gunslinger who has made plenty of enemies. Worst of all, working robbery to robbery has left the main crew members of the gang getting older and without really a decent retirement plan. They're kind of saying, I don't know what... It's fine if the Western's ending. I don't really care, but what do I do? How am I making a buck? So the Wild Bunch stumbles into an opportunity of a lifetime while on the run south of the border. The army there is looking for American guns and promises to get the gang set up for life if they get the supply. But the real test comes from the loyalty that keeps the group together and how it will be pushed by their new crooked employer. Complicating things, we also follow a group of ex-con mercenaries, one of which is Pike's old partner, Thornton, now hunting them down. As the story bluntly puts it, 30 days to get Pike or 30 days to get tossed back to Yuma, which... I'll be honest, I would have wanted a little bit more out of this. I feel like this could have entered even Revenant territory in creating pressure from the front, pressure from the back.
A little bit of chase. More of a chase.
Yeah. But This B plot, it's good. I like the hunt aspect. Honestly, though, it would have been so much better if they were clocked up as a threat. This secondary posse hunting them down, they're so ragtag. They're so like,
you only have one comp.
Like, chaotic. Like
only one competent character.
Yeah, and it just didn't feel like a threat at all. And I don't think the film even thinks it's a threat by the end as well.
No, they talked to that too, saying like Robert Ryan's character Thornton. He was visibly and actively and telling how disappointed he was the crew he got to deal with it, to go hunt these people down.
Yeah.
So that I almost think because of the length of the movie, they could have spent a little bit more time away from the Wild Bunch, and gone with B Team, the chase aspect, because it would have been. I just think it would have been better.
Yeah, or maybe make them dangerous, chaotic, or maybe you make them even worse criminals. Like we're already dealing with criminals, but they clearly have their camaraderie.
The bad of the bad.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe those kind of prospector types. To
that, I like Thornton's character.
Yes.
But he was the only one good in that group, and not long enough for sure.
Exactly.
To your point.
Exactly. So I just feel like that aspect really, if that clocked up, man, this movie would be even better, in my opinion.
Yeah. There was so heavy dialogue scenes between our main crew that they either could have been shortened up, some completely cut out.
Sure.
And you would have plenty of real estate there to add to that.
Absolutely. Or maybe even cut out some of the Mexican army stuff, because a lot of the scenes linger, and it's threatening, but
it's dialogue heavy.
Yeah,
this film
really
is dialogue heavy.
It really is.
Yeah.
Especially within the gang, and and how they operate as a gang. They rib each other, but they they're still one step from pulling a bullet in each other's brain. So and really, that's a good transition. Luckily, the dynamic nature of our gang is a highlight here. I think they're able to get tense and chaotic, but we also see how they can stick together. These outlaws are comrades. They rib each other. They joke around, but again, they're one step away from one line to put a bullet in each other. So, folks judge the book by the cover here. It's a wild bunch. And it's great that we're reminded of this so frequently in the story. It's a chaotic nature that actually had me thinking of Guardians of the Galaxy. Believe it or not, that a group of bounty hunters should equally feel at odds with each other and also like a family. Granted, I don't know if that's the goal. Like a gritty criminal group is the goal of the Guardians of the Galaxy. They're still superheroes, but it just had me thinking about how you write a group of characters and how they interact and how that interaction determines our feelings on the group as a whole.
I like that. I would definitely go Firefly more.
Oh, okay.
There's even one character in the bunch that reminded me of the Baldwin character in Firefly as well.
Yeah, the muscle face.
Yeah.
Good catch.
That's a good note, though, that everyone is a working dynamic in this larger dynamic. Kind of.
Yeah. And they're not just like teamed up for the sake of teaming up. Actually, one of our first interactions is from that bank shootout. Oh, someone has to get left behind. And one of the gang members, I think Ernest, I forget how you pronounce his last name. He was in...
Ernest Borgnine?
Yeah. He was in those terrible Escape from New York movies.
He was. He's a big actor.
Yeah. But they leave someone behind, and he's just like, wait, what are we going to do? A church service? What are we going to do? Dinner afterwards? And it's just like, we're constantly reminded through the writing, and as much as talking as there is, of why and how this group stays together when, oddly enough, they probably would be enemies in any other circumstances.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah,
and I think that again, it's telling this like Michael Mann style. It's about criminals. I mean, I was all about it.
It's all criminals. This film is all criminal.
Yeah, you're right. There's no one good in this. Cast-wise, William Holden plays our gang leader Pike and is great. This is also 7 years before his tremendous performance in 1976's Network, which is, I would say, his most iconic. We get Robert Ryan playing Thornton, Pike's jaded partner on his tail. He's no stranger to these type of big action films, starring in many other westerns and films like 1967's The Dirty Dozen, of course, very iconic.
Yep.
And a slew of other classic actors recognizable from over the decades. A small favorite of mine was spotting L.Q. Jones, a longtime actor and one-time director of the post-apocalyptic classic Boy and His Dog. So,
oh my gosh, yes,
yeah. L.Q. is he's actually one of the yippee-ki-yay kind of, in the posse.
Yeah.
But, so not great, but
Wow.
I spotted that on the Amazon X-ray. I was like, LQ? I know only one man named LQ.
Good catch on that movie.
Yeah. So I saw on the newsletter last year we covered 1969's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I mean, even just saying the name, it holds gravity to it, which had some pretty notable shootouts, had themes of camaraderie among criminals, and had a sharp script. This film, however, puts it to shame, and it came out the very same year. I feel like this completely wiped the floor with it, and as well, other type of peer movies. During award season this year, peer westerns like the original True Grit and the mentioned Butch Cassidy really swept up the Oscars. I feel like the Wild Bunch was snubbed straight up.
It could have been snubbed. I think True Grit. True Grit was awarded and thought of better, all because I think they felt like they needed to do something because they thought John Wayne was not going to get too much longer.
Yeah. I remember you telling me.
Yeah, I think he had to start with cancer already here. He ended up living for a decent number of years. He made some stuff in the 70s, of course. But I think it was like, we're running out of years for him, and we need to give him some sort of Oscar. I think that's why True Grit was because True Grit, I don't know if it's in my top 5
the original
of John Wayne films.
Right.
Yeah.
If anything, I think I like the newer one better.
Well, I think a lot of people do, honestly. I don't think that's much. I don't think you're saying much there.
Okay.
It's a bit more of a toss-up for me.
Right. But
it's a big year.
It's a big year for Westerns, and I like we always say, we could give, 2 craps of what the Oscars do when they don't.
Of course.
No less, 50 some years back. But it really was just a moment that was just like, wow, they got it totally wrong. The Wild Bunch is where it's at. The Wild Bunch was just so much more inventive, so much more energy, and so much more modern in its film craft that it made me question how little it was nominated, period. Take a pinch of Jesse James, add a dash of Unforgiven, and wrap it up in this proto-Michael Mann style, and folks, it did not disappoint and well deserves a spot on so many all-time great lists. We're going to go ahead and give The Wild Bunch 1969 and 82.
Wow!
It's a good one. I would say easily one of my favorite Westerns as well.
I think clearly. I think this is the first Western that got above an 80%.
No.
This is the first Western that got above...
I was peeking on the site. We got some others.
Oh, we do?
We got one that you don't like. The Coen Brothers one. The Buster Scruggs.
Yeah. 82% is huge, folks. 82. If you're new to the podcast, it's not often we get above 80s at all. And when you're above 85, that's like must watch. Any audience before you die, go see it. That's 80. I mean, 82 for a Western. You don't understand what this film had going against it.
Now, I'm curious to hear your opinions, though, because you weren't as hot on this.
I wasn't as hot as you, so I don't even have a Tommy Two Shoes.
Oh, okay, fair.
I was impressed by the number of people on screen. I was impressed by the choreography of all that needed to go down. The crazy horse work, that at one point going down the sand and everything like that. The stuff's going. All of that was all impressive. Even the actors, the camaraderie, it was impressive to an extent. I felt like it was too long, too much dialogue. I don't think we got enough from Robert Ryan, from Thornton's character. Yep. I think he was so good on screen. I just wanted to see him more.
Yeah,
and
he had a presence about him.
He's a good guy, but he's not. He's still a bad guy, and that's hilarious. I enjoyed seeing the action on the screen, and especially there's 2 or 3 big action stuff going on.
Yeah.
My problem is it was over chaotic for me. It was overly chaotic, and it was a little bit too messy and too busy.
Interesting.
I could follow along and everything like that.
Did you think the blood was too much?
No.
Okay.
I mean, because we're how many years later?
Sure.
Now that we've been through the 90s and the early 2000s, we're good.
Sure.
I know back then it was a big deal, especially at the end.
Yeah.
More and more blood. They were not used to that.
It really is Tarantino-esque.
Not used to it back then.
Yeah.
But it was overly busy, and I couldn't grip on the characters. I would say I really liked Pike and Dutch, Ernest Borgnine's character, a lot. Somewhat relatable, somewhat not. I don't know why, honestly, it wasn't. Even the train sequence was a very good sequence, and yet it just wasn't something that was grabbing me all too much.
Interesting. Maybe I like that perspective, though.
It might have not helped that the version I watched was 10 minutes longer, too.
Yeah, I don't know. I got to double check on what I watched.
I would have cut down on the dialogue, that's all. Okay. I would have cut down on the dialogue and maybe cleaned up the action a little bit more. So, a really good film. I just don't feel enough about it to give it a 2 shoes. Okay. And 82 for you is unbelievable. I mean, the ongoing thing was we couldn't crack the 80s with you. with old Westerns. The fact that Buster Scruggs gets on there, whatever.
Right.
Because John Wayne can't hold a candle. I mean, 82, we're lost in the wind here. And that's okay. We still haven't done a John Wayne one. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, right. No, yeah. Not holding a grudge. Not.
Fantastic. Any finishing notes on that? I mean, it's
No.
that's a great score.
I like your perspective a lot because I think it maybe can represent as well someone that maybe is expecting more of a hero or heroics to the film. And
I wasn't looking for it.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
I didn't. The fact that we were dealing with all bad guys, I quite liked.
Okay, all right.
And it was different. And the fact that we were watching a Western still in 69, that we didn't have super polished good guy, I was more than okay with that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the execution, the busyness of it, and as I said, the dialogue. A lot of dialogue, and I thought it could have been cleaned up a little bit even.
Sure,
there was some stuff just still, as far as production of the film goes, maybe could have been better, even though in some ways it was very impressive.
No, but I love that perspective because it was a lot of dialogue. And I was kind of lasered into how it's working with the chemistry of the group.
Sure.
But that can equally bore someone as well if they're not, care to pay attention to it.
That
or
connection's
yeah.
right. What a surprise for you, though.
Yeah, I've told you, it was a good week.
That's a big one. That is a really big one,
good
folks.
week.
I don't know. It might take a couple years, Vin, until we get back to an 82% with the Western. But anyway, folks, with that, let's go ahead and go into our donation segment. Now, we do have a producer this week, Vin, which is great. As we
big
said,
week.
A little dry, but that's okay. We get it. We get it. People are still trying to figure out, what are we doing? What does value for value mean? It's all good. It's all good, folks. We do have a returning producer here, though, coming in. We have Glenn and Carol, who donated $50 towards us.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
They've been producers since the beginning, something we
Yep.
appreciate so much. And we have a big note. We have a big...
Buckle in.
Glenn wrote a big note, but that's okay. We'll go through it here because we appreciate all of it. So Glenn and Carol write, "Greetings, Vinny and Thomas. As we are avid listeners of the show and having produced several episodes, we would like to give our thoughts and opinions on several things."
Several. They came
Buckle
with an
in.
agenda.
So, first, we thought episode 91 was one of your poorer shows.
Oh.
The Insidious show was not much to work with. Stayed listening due to your commentary, but the movies you reviewed were subpar to work with. We do like paranormal and some horror genre movies, and we also realize that there are some fans out there that are a fan of the franchise. That being said, to waste an entire episode was lackluster at best. Most, we are sure, would agree, including yourselves, having you rated them so poorly.
Yeah. But I will say the homework was necessary to kind of, if anything, for Red Door, to grasp, Patrick Wilson's ghost PTSD.
We'll go. I'm going to go through all these. And we'll go through. Okay, so they say, second, you turned it around 100% with episode 92 Mission Impossible movies. Emerald Lagasse would say, bam! Let's kick it up a notch. You both did just that. While we are sure the majority of the listeners are fans of this genre, you guys nailed it. It was exciting and jam-packed with content and got us excited to want to watch some of these movies. Your ratings of the movies were all above average as well. This podcast was one of your longest, and the time flew by as if it was your normal hour or so shows.
That's a great note.
Yeah. This show had highlights as well. Hey, Vin, what's Mom making in the dinner and she's a little moody? What's that smell? Tension lasagna.
Tension lasagna.
Don't eat that last piece of Stouffer's, Vinny, or I'll be pissed. What's that? You guessed it, folks. Tension lasagna.
Tension lasagna.
Vinny, your new use of this culinary critique of your synopsis of the films was fun and enjoyable.
Oh, that's great. I got some for Oppenheimer, too. So.
Thomas, the dare we say impossible polished rating that Vin suggested is a must. Your ratings, Tom, have been expanding on the show, and we think it is awesome. Two shoes, laces, polished, flip-flops, loads of fun, Tommy Two Shoes. Third point, we realize that your show takes a lot of time to research and prepare for, but we would like to say that when Thomas has seen some of the movies, the back-and-forth banter is a greater listen than when Thomas just asking questions. Reminds of us watching Siskel and Ebert back in the day, reviewing movies with a thumbs up or down. Your show definitely goes further with a percentage, and sometimes a two shoes, which makes it that much more enticing to listen to. Even if it's not a movie one is particularly interested in, this is what makes the show great. Fourth point. Love it.
4 out of 6.
Love the newsletter. A quick, fun read. Maybe the recipe section gave you insight, Vinny, on your review skills.
Maybe subconsciously.
Love the domestic and global box office takes and wondered if it would be possible to add what each of the movies cost to make. Oh. It would be nice to know if a movie was tanking or turning a profit. Fifth point, shame for both strikes. I think he's talking about the writers and actors strikes. He goes, have a feeling 2024 content will be delayed or poorer than usual. Not looking forward to the barrage of reality and game shows on the tube. Thankfully,
or AI content, more likely.
Thankfully, there are a ton of movies out there to review. Lastly, we just wanted to give an early congrats on your forthcoming Hundy episode. Your show has continually evolved and gotten better. Looking forward to the next 100 and wish you both continued success. Your producers, Glenn and Carol, are...
Wow, a phenomenal note. A
hearty note. It had it all in there.
Categorical.
So we'll go through this. Let's just go through this we'll go through this backwards a little bit. So I do believe the shows are getting better and better. We thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And we're getting more comfortable here on the mics even. It's just getting great. The strikes, we'll see what content coming out. One thing, even with the latest newsletter I threw in there is a growing list that they're granting work waivers for. So more and more of these films, like for instance, right now, Mission is held up.
Haunted Mansion,
Deadpool.
I saw have a press release.
But that's in the can. That should still be coming out just fine.
Oh, right. But
I'm
still,
talking about,
down the road.
Mission Part 2 is already held up now. I think Deadpool 3 is held up, and the new F1 movie with Brad Pitt that's going to be coming out that he's filming. That's stopped production. But slowly things are going to be, I think, granted waivers. Because the problem is the union's going to have an issue with here is you can't piss off the viewing audience too much wondering where you're at, because then we're all going to start siding with the studios. Then you're not going to get anything. So it's going to be a weird balance that they have to do as far as granting work, but also not having enough where they can turn the screws.
Sure.
We'll see with that.
I think you bring up a good point, because there's a lot of talk of supporting all this and donating and whatnot. And I think we're both in support of the actors, screw the studios. But at the same time, when it comes to... No, you're not.
I can split it down the middle pretty easily.
Okay.
I am for sure not straight on the actor side.
Okay, fair enough. But when it comes to push comes to shove, are people really going to bring up the massive amount of content that is funneled to them through streaming and through the huge amount of movies that are released in this year alone? I feel like people are going to want to still get what they want, and that's where it's going to buckle. That's where that support's going to become a lot weaker.
There is some cool indie stuff we might be able to get, some cool lower level stuff that could come out of this too. So we'll just see how it goes. I could spend an hour with you on it. We could record a special and just get it out.
Right.
I'm talking about it. I am not on anyone's side completely.
Sure.
I can go either way. I can hear both arguments a little bit. So I'm a little bit more of a fence.
That's a good level-headed
A little bit more of
approach to
a
it.
fence sitter on this one.
Right.
The newsletter. Great suggestion on putting in the budget. I think I'll put the budget in there.
Okay.
And it is a good, quick, fun read.
Yeah.
Go down the bottom of the website, sign up for the newsletter, put your name, put your email in there. That's all you need. You're good to go. As far as I know, Vin loves it too. The more movies I watch and the more back and forth we can have. Not that I don't enjoy it either. It's fun. It might get a chance for more two shoes and stuff. It's if I can make it happen, I can make it happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the important working chemistry is that I am handling the movies and Tom is not. But I feel like what's illustrated in that Mission Impossible episode, you wanted to watch all those.
Right, yeah.
You had a genuine curiosity. I feel like if if we agree to you watch one movie that I'm watching a week, but you have no interest with it, that's not going to add into a productive conversation.
Right, at that point, and if I had time to watch it, I might as well do some work on the site or something. Because I'm doing some of this background stuff and everything like that.
Absolutely.
Although Vince, hey, look us up on our socials too. Vince's been going awesome on that with some of the YouTube and Instagram stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get to the first one with the Insidious stuff. Now, everyone knows I am not a big horror fan, so I almost feel the same way. Turn back to, I mean, I don't need personally as much horror in my life. That being said, this is where the podcast is very much, we almost shoot ourselves in the foot because for a lot of people, we are not a sit down and just listen to the whole thing. Sometimes we're not a listen to these 2 episodes, but we'll listen to these 2. Covering 5 films a week, it can be so hit or miss for each individual's people's likings. So that's just going to how it's have to be. Now, they seem like avid listeners to the point where they listen all the way through for every episode, which is huge. And we do have some of those. But it really comes to a thing of, I just think we're going to have some weeks that isn't going to pique your interest so much.
Sure.
And you just said you think, one, it was a 5 slot, so it's great to get all 5 movies in there. They do have a cult following. You also wanted to get through one or two.
And big as far as box
4.
office wise. I mean, if there's anything that governs the series breakdowns kind of episodes, the series specials, if you will, it's that is it making money money, well, someone's going to care. I mean, someone's got to be buying the tickets.
For sure. And I think overall, they were kind of trying to say, we think also that it might not be what most people would be into.
Sure.
That's kind of how I feel. And
Yeah.
for some weeks, we'll stay away from some stuff.
Yeah.
I'll just say, though, we're on episode 93, so in the 92 published episodes, Insidious is tied for second best.
Well, there you go.
Our top,
Listen,
which is crazy.
Glenn Carroll, I'm with you. Insidious sucked. I mean, that was, like I said, I moved into a new place and I was not scared watching these movies in the dark alone, so the proof's in the pudding there, but...
At best 4 things that we've ever done, apparently, the John Wick, and Insidious, and the Guardians 3 episode tied for second. And way out in first, with our best performing episode yet, as far as like downloads and listens, the Fast 10 episode.
Of course.
I mean, like without, it's just way in the head.
There's the proof in the pudding as well. I put myself through
So that's just how it's going to be. There's going to be some weeks that hit, some that miss, but...
Yeah. But I think it's a good observation, and I mean, if only...
Sorry I didn't like the episode, basically.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
Apparently a lot of people did, to my surprise as well.
And also, I think it's a good tie back into your engagement with it. You weren't into these movies, Tom. You know? I mean, you weren't you're not into the horror, and you're not into bad horror, certainly. So.
But I still loved. I mean, it doesn't matter what we're doing. I'm still having a blast on the other side of the table. It just might not be as a little bit chatty. That's all.
Right.
Folks, if you're wondering what is going on in the podcast now, why we're not talking about movies, because if you're new to this, we're going off the value for value model. And what the idea is, Vin and I sit down every week. Vin watches the movies. We sit down and do the podcast. We have the newsletter. We have the companion piece, basically the website going along with all this, kind of like our own Rotten Tomatoes. The point of that is that value to you. You're finding it valuable. We want you to go to the dailyratings.com, you go to the donations tab, and you become a legit producer of the Daily Ratings by sending in a monetary donation that's also saying how much value you're getting. You put a dollars figure to how much value you're getting and send it our way. We have single donations you can make. You can make whatever. We can make the value for value, which is whatever number you want. We have monthlies. We have a weekly you can do. You can hit us up on the website. We are also podcasting 2.0 if you want to send Satoshis. We are on at the Daily Ratings on Venmo. A lot of different ways to do that. But the point is, when you go ahead and send money in, you can also write in a note, just like Glenn and Carol did. The idea behind that is you are a legit producer. Glenn and Carol, you are executive producers of episode 93. And because of that, we're going to take time to hear your thoughts, your comments, your questions. So all of that had this on there.
Your critiques.
Some questions, some critiques, love, hate, doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. If you're going to send us some cash, if you're going to give us some value, we want to show some a little appreciation for that. It is the value for value model. It's the dailyratings.com. You head to the donations tab, and just like Glenn and Carol, you go ahead and become a producer of the Daily Ratings. We thank you all so much. Don't forget to donate the Hundy on the Hundy as episode 100 is right around the corner. But really, we appreciate your $50 this week. Executive producers for Glenn and Carol, episode 93. Our longest note yet, but a lot of great content in there. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So, all right, Vin, with that, let's keep things going. We have our 3 newly released films. We're running long here, folks, but that's okay. Let's start with our least known one, I think. I think we're both on board for that.
Sure.
Yeah, we're going to start with They Clone Tyrone, directed by Jewel Taylor, and 2 main stars in this. We have Jamie Foxx. We have John
Boyega.
Thank you.
You messed me up.
We all know him from Star Wars and from one of our least new films last year.
Missing.
Yeah.
Good catch.
But let's get into it right away. They Clone Tyrone. How was it?
Well, like I said at the beginning of the episode, this was a excellent week across the board. I was not complaining at all.
Okay.
And They Clone Tyrone... If you catch the trailer for this, maybe it's pushed out to you when you first log into Netflix. It is not your normal movie, and I was really attracted to how wild and out there it was.
It surprised me. I don't know if it's not on anyone's radar.
Yeah.
It's so much Barbenheimer talk.
True. You know absolute lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
For sure. This is the first feature film Jewel Taylor has directed, and is an interesting combination of talent. In addition to enjoying giving first-time directors a shot, rather than just be a writer or an editor, Taylor is coming from a sound mixing background. I can't say I noticed a lot of audio tricks in this movie, but he certainly knows how to create an interesting tone and mood, and I felt like that was a interesting
It's a weird
combination of talent. So
he co-wrote it as well
Yeah.
with another guy that kind of has a weird background-ish kind of.
Yeah. So I was excited for this. Unlike a lot of Netflix releases this year, this one certainly looked much more unique. This plays out like a hood gangster film that's a dark comedy with a sci-fi mystery spin. It is pretty out there stuff and pretty great for that reason. I mean, this was a very like Barbie almost, so unique, so its own thing that it was hard for me to levy my usual critiques at it because it was accomplishing something so out there.
Okay.
And had a cast I was excited to see, mainly John Boyega, which, like you said, Tom, after the miss in 2022 with Breaking, I wanted to give him another shot because I like him. I think he can do good stuff, and clearly this was a good example of that.
Okay,
So.
that's good. I'm very much not on board with him.
Sure.
But even before he was in Star Wars, he was in that one small-time kind of cult movie, I think.
Attack the Block.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you were a fan of that. Oh, okay. Maybe you just knew who he was.
Yeah,
then.
yeah. I knew he was. Actually, that's so funny that that was brought up by Matt D in a conversation as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I root for John Boyega because I think he has some good potential, and here this was on display. So, but what is They Cloned Tyrone about? Well, like the movie says itself, a pimp, a hoe, and a drug dealer team up to get to the bottom of a mystery in the hood. John Boyega plays a badass gangster named Fontaine. Teyona Paris plays Yo-Yo, a hooker obsessed with a conspiracy and Nancy Drew novels. And best of all, the pimp Slick Charles. Slick Charles is played by Jamie Foxx, doing his best player haters ball impression right out of a Chappelle Show sketch. I mean, he is so entertaining as this just like wisecracking pimp. It's so good.
Is he a little bit out of like the blaxploitation films that we covered?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like this was. I was so tuned into this because is this trying to be, or can this even be defined as blaxploitation? I don't know, but it is absolutely in that wheelhouse, like a Black Dynamite, like a Shaft, that is just so good on its own, and it's from these kind of blown up characters, these caricatures of it. So they find a secret high-tech laboratory in a drug house, and it opens up a huge can of worms beyond their wildest imagination. This discovery has them putting on their tinfoil hats, paranoid of everyday products around them, and questioning how they are suspiciously targeted through their neighborhood specifically. I would say, as much as I've talked up Boyega, the stealer of the show is Jamie Foxx. He is very funny in this, and I absolutely love the character the whole time. This is one of those like great side performances that you would see in Shaft or Black Dynamite that kind of steals the show altogether.
Yeah.
Especially for Shaft, that some of his
the Pesci characters.
Yeah, exactly. They're just better than everyone else because maybe they don't have enough time on screen, but they leave you wanting more. And that was Jamie Foxx's character to a T here. I didn't know how I was going to dig the comedy.
Yeah.
I was in this for more of the sci-fi mystery element.
Yeah, it's being pegged as a lot of different things. It's to compare this to other films. Mm-hmm. It's a very big array of films, kind of. Yeah,
absolutely. I feel like the comedy for me, I walked into this and I was like, this is where it's going to be weak. This is where it's not going to land. The jokes aren't going to land. It's not going to be funny, yada, yada. But he is consistently hysterical. His character is right out of a Chappelle Show sketch, like I said, in the best way possible. And like really such a good way. But yeah, this is, as far as why it's so out there, why it's so genre juggling, this 100% belongs to an emerging subgenre along with a lot of Jordan Peele style films. The term I've heard thrown around is Afro-surrealism, and folks, apologies if in advance if that gets tossed out eventually because it already sounds a bit dicey, Yeah, maybe like Afro jazz and things like that, but yeah, I don't know. So, but that's at least the term being thrown around right now. The defining feature here is that it's taking these Black experiences or worldview and making them heightened by incorporating genre-bending elements. Horror and sci-fi is the case with this movie. And a good example of this beyond just Jordan Peele's other type of movies is 2008's Sorry to Bother You, and of course Donald Glover's hit show Atlanta. All kind of belong in this emerging space of stories around Black experiences, but also always twisted in some way to incorporate another genre and genre bending elements to it. So does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we're with you on that.
Cool. More so than anything, again, apologies if that term gets thrown out, but that's what's being called right now. We experience some of this commentary through commercials in universe and wise hobos on the street. Reminded me of a Paul Verhoeven style in its world building, which is awesome. I can't tell you how well executed it is. You certainly feel it in the surreal setting being this kind of retro future mix. It's equally looks like it, the pimps are out of the 70s, but it's in modern day. They have like cell phones and everything like that. So it's this retro future mix in its setting. The music that plays is all manufactured to have like sleeper cell lyrics in it. It's like really, really like awesome stuff. But it's in the subtle introduction of these factors that makes it all work. These factors are from the very start. And as an audience, even if you haven't watched the trailer, even if this is truly a blind watch onto Netflix, you can sense that there's something wrong to the sci-fi. There's something that a little bit foreboding to all of these world-building factors around them that the characters themselves haven't even noticed. And unlike some of the peer movies in this subgenre, I feel like this was a huge step up for selling such a wild concept and earning the payoff of how wild this gets. Going back to Sorry I Bothered You, I kind of like that film. I think it's the rare film that that has commentary on the telesales community, which is something that is very modern and needs to kind of have a spotlight on. When it comes down to it, though, that film gets so wild at the end and comes out of left field. It doesn't feel earned. They clone Tyrone. It's baked into the whole experience, and that's where I would be very comfortable placing this next to any Paul Verhoeven style film, that it is thought through, it is organized, and it is calculated to give you this experience, to create a foreboding sci-fi to it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I feel like this was just such a great concept, and how it was a dark comedy as well. Man, I really loved it. Overall, this was an awesome sci-fi flick. And an awesome mystery. While I feel there might be some nitpicks that I could throw towards maybe some of the production, maybe for the story continuity itself, or how maybe certain things are revealed, it was just so unique. It really worked past it in a genuine way. I feel like the end experience has a worth itness to this film that even if you're maybe not digging the wild out there sci-fi concepts, the payoff is worth it. I would say, folks, in addition to the slew of other media that I referenced in this review, I would say on kind of a gut feeling, if you like any of the Edgar Wright films for specifically their story and how it unfolds, I feel like give this a watch. There's the same care. There's the same attention to detail put into how the sci-fi is revealed here.
Same pacing and everything like that? Like, how is the movie paced?
I would say so. I would specifically of Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz is probably a good example of how, it's deceivingly innocent in the beginning, and then it kind of unfolds into wild and wild and wild. There was a thought here that this was going to be the throwaway for this week, and I was just like, it's a new film, let's go ahead and cover it, But this was a glimmer in Netflix's catalog this year, and I was really pleasantly surprised. Go ahead and give it a watch. We're going to go ahead and give They Cloned Tyrone a 74.
74, a great score.
Yeah, a great week.
That's a good, very good movie right there. 74%.
Absolutely.
Wow, They Cloned Tyrone out of nowhere, really. So that's what did you just see it and say go for it? Or did you were you aware of it?
It was on my radar. I think it was on the list of all the movies planned out for the year.
Okay.
Just because I try to capture, what is new on streaming as well.
Yeah.
But I tackled this one, and I'm telling you, it was a really good sci-fi.
It might be one of the best ones for streaming, honestly. This year. Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what comes from Tyler. Taylor.
Jewel Taylor. Yeah. That's fantastic. All right, I might check it out. That's and Jamie Foxx.
Oh,
and a character looking like that.
He's so
the way he does. does. Yeah.
He has this joke. He's just like, I'm going to slip out of this silk suit in half a second. I'm going to be back into it before you know me. It's just so good. Like he's so funny consistently through the whole thing.
Okay, 74. Yeah, not expecting that. We'll keep it going here. We have our two biggies. When I will start with
Barbie.
Okay. We're going to jump to Greta Gerwig's Barbie. And let's get right into it. It is taking over the internet. It is taking over the theaters. It's taking over everyone's money. And how did we like Barbie?
I would say Barbie was great. It really was a good time. Folks, I'll say right out of the gate, I had no expectations for this movie being good. And honestly, I feared if it was good, it would just invite yet another massive toy brand into the yearly movie cycle. Now, rumor mill has already started that reportedly there's going to be a Hot Wheels movie already in the process.
JJ's working on it. JJ's working on it.
Right. So I guess there's...
And Barney.
Oh, boy. How does Mattel own Barney?
Does Mattel own Barney?
I don't know.
Okay.
Or maybe it's just like in the other type of kid brand
regardless.
conversation.
It's on doc.
Yeah. And, the financials don't lie. This is a mega success. Barbie specifically, Oppenheimer aside. So I guess there's no putting Mattel back into the bottle alongside Hasbro, and I'm sure they'll come out of the woodwork because of this, sniffing out the money. And against my expectations, Barbie was excellent. I really thought this was a great movie and so unique. It could have been so predictable, could have been so by the books. You think about this concept in the 90s, she gets to the real world, she finds a little girl to get her, into fish out of water stuff.
Sure.
It could have been so single lane and avoids all of that. And not only that, is a very funny satire. This may have some corporate aspects to it, but the movie has a sharp script that punches on all sides and is surprisingly a great satire. I would put this movie alongside of the massively successful Lego movies for how the idea of the toy was utilized in the movie and in the script, and how smart the writing was around that concept of the toy.
Okay. So you didn't get lazy writing from this?
No, not at all. Not at all. I feel like lazy writing would have been Barbie gets to the real world. Oh, she's a fish out of water. Oh, she she gets in trouble, or she finds a little girl that, helps her teach how to be a real person. No, it's none of that.
Okay.
It's so impressive how this avoids almost every expectation I had of where this would be bad or eye-rolling or cliche, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Let's talk about the rising talent behind this, Greta Gerwig. This is the fourth film she has directed after the two Oscar-nominated films, the film adaptation of Little Women in 2019 and Lady Bird in 2017. I would really like to cover these films in the next few months because Gerwig is both writing and directing in these movies. And just like I said with the last film, I think it's important to pay attention to talent that has a singular vision, is able to execute upon that. She's
writing with her partner or former partner, Noah Baumbach,
right,
who also wrote White Noise.
Yep.
Greta Gerwig was the wife in that film.
Yep.
And of course, Marriage Story.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's definitely a good writing team. And I thought, okay, this has something going for it then, if he's going to be on writing as well.
Yeah.
And she definitely has that limelight. She is, as far as women being pushed in the industry, she's one of the top ones. She already has, Netflix picked her up to do at least 2 Chronicles of Narnia films.
Oh, really? That's coming back?
Yeah. And she's doing it, which concerns me, to be honest with you.
Oh,
I hear
I could have sworn growing up you were no Narnia, all Lord of the Rings.
Well, obviously, of course. But I have respect for Narnia, for what it is, and C.S. Lewis,
that's
and Tolkien,
right.
friends. Right, hey, the Tea Club, all good, all good.
Catholic gentleman.
I do hear this gets a little, and I'm sorry, you were going somewhere, and I slashed it here. This does definitely take feminist bends for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely. But not in an eye-rolling way. And I really mean that.
I hear there's some scenes that is eye-rolling.
I mean,
there's some speeches.
There was an eye roll
monologues.
from me in the sense that our crowd erupted into applause.
Was this during America Ferrera's speech? I've just heard things about it.
Listen, there was, I feel like, a reaction from a crowd that was made me say, all right, I mean, do we really need a standing ovation in a theater? You know, I mean, this is in Cannes or something like that.
Right.
You know? I don't like that stuff anyway. So, but no, I really mean this, and believe me, I tell it like it is. This is not eye rolling. This avoids and punches on all sides. It is punching at feminists equally as it's punching at the Ken himbo, dumb, type of jokes that are thrown out there. That's what was so refreshing about this. I feel the script was smart, not because it was socially aware to these issues. Mm-hmm. It was smart because it knew how to ride the line perfectly and not dip too much into either side.
Okay.
And that's really how I feel about it. I can imagine that the massive success of Barbie will only supercharge her projects. Greta Gerwig, that is.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
It's great to see. I think it's well earned, and I think in the next coming months or so, I'm gonna find time to fit in Lady Bird and Little Women just to get up to speed on it.
I don't remember Little Women. Was Lady Bird after? Was she kind of on her rides then? Lady Bird.
Lady Bird was 17. Little Women was 19. So
interesting. Okay.
Both very acclaimed. I obviously am aware of these movies coming out.
Right.
But
my problem is, are they acclaimed because they need to be acclaimed?
Oh,
I'm just going to be very sensitive to that
sure.
because that's my mindset goes.
I think more so it's probably a critique you can level at those movies is more Oscar bait than anything. But yeah, that I'm kind of with you. There's a reason why I haven't really seen them. So.
Right. It'd be interesting to see. Does it hold up, or is it just because we need to all like this because it's because of the messages and because we have
throwing punches? I'm
sorry. I mean, come on.
I'm telling you though, this movie Barbie,
and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Because I like them as a writing team, and I liked her, but I'm the one who liked White Noise.
Right.
So
right.
I like Gerwig actually.
Yeah, and Bob Fox writing in White Noise as well. Yeah, that's so funny. But yeah, in Barbie, we follow Barbie, one of many Barbies in Barbie world. Margot Robbie plays stereotypical Barbie, living her best Barbie life, and when suddenly concepts like death and her place in the universe cause her to have an existential crisis, that's kind of our setup here, and that's the first step in the right direction that this movie makes immediately. Is that it's not like, oh, I want to get to the real world to find the little girl that's playing with me or something like that. Imagine this film made in the 90s. Imagine this film made in the early 2000s.
Definitely.
It would be so dull and cliche.
Or Disney movie. Yeah.
Oh, sure. But it avoids all of it. This makes her stick out like a sore thumb, these thoughts of doom and gloom in Barbie world. So she has to travel to the real world to understand her feelings and find out who's playing with her and maybe causing some of these not so good feelings. Tagging along with her is Ken, played by Ryan Gosling, a true amazing performance in this.
Yeah.
He kills it.
I don't doubt it. And
Ken in this feels similarly out of place. Both discover what the real world is and takes them in drastically different kind of understandings through their thoughts about Barbie world and what Barbie world should be. I would say a lot like Oppenheimer, the cast in this is huge. There are so many extras.
Oh my gosh.
And so many little bit additions to characters.
Like so many other Barbies and so many other Kens.
Yeah. If there's anything that is kind of hindsight 2020 on pairing Barbenheimer together, it's in the cast is like a who's who, like, oh, spot him there and spot him there, and enjoyable in that way.
I was putting it on the site and I didn't know where to stop with all the actors.
I
was
know.
like, I can't have all these.
Yeah, for real. So, but also my focus is squarely on the lead. Margot Robbie is excellent in this, and it really is Robbie's show. She's able to hang with these smart jokes, sell the fun character here. I mean, it's Barbie. She's at least initially a little ditzy until she's kind of struck with these philosophical crises. So when it comes down to that, she's able to have the fun that the characters needed, but is able to snap into the smart writing that is thrown out there with this. Something that I didn't even mention in the notes, or I have in my notes, is that understand this is a PG-13 movie. Sure, there were kids in the theater, but This is more of a kind of a not adult comedy, but it's not meant for like little kids.
It's not, and I think that maybe it was sold a little bit wrong. But it is definitely that kind of 13 and up.
Yeah,
is a vibe.
Yeah,
and would you say? I mean, Margot Robbie might be top 5 female actresses under the age of 65.
Interesting requirements. Yeah, I don't know.
Look at her percentage of good performances. Even though the movies themselves, you might have some hit or misses or just like smaller films here or there. She is so good in everything she does.
Yeah.
She's phenomenal.
Absolutely. And I think she's great here. You know, she's just able to shine in every scene, whether it's fun, whether it's sad, whether it's inspirational.
Yeah. She's great at taking on characters.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
From her Wolf of Wall Street character to I, Tonya, you know?
Yep, absolutely. But easily the best part is the comedy itself. I like I said, I went on a crowded Friday night. Everyone was dressed up in pink. It was like a Rocky Horror Picture Show style event that people was like, you know, it was about going to the theater itself, which was awesome. And the crowd was like dying laughing. I can't say I was really like dying laughing, but I was really surprised like how just genuinely funny and how good the satire was at punching at all sides. You know, the style of comedy is like a mix of a Truman Show style satire, especially with the self-aware element to it, and a fun like Dr. Seuss styled cartoon world. And I cannot stress that it rides a perfect line with the comedy. Not once did it come off as overly preachy. Like all great satires, it punches on all sides. Sure, there are plenty of jokes about Ken being an idiot man, and the real world equally pokes fun at Barbie's pink tinted perspective. You know, there is really great stuff here because Gerwig and Baumbach did an excellent job in balancing jokes that aim at all sides. When it comes down to Ken's character specifically, that's where I feel like it is able to even punch towards the feminists and punch towards the, you know, the girl power element that may cause some eye rolls in the theater or something like that, or may, you know, be the, you know, the vocal minority online really, you know, slamming Barbie for no good reason. When it comes down to it, Ken, when he gets back to Barbie world after being in the real world, he takes the real world lessons with him. And what this does to Barbie world is so genuinely funny. And what it does at kind of poking fun at the girl power feminist, you know, kind of message of the film, it's so refreshing to see that this film could make fun of itself a little bit as much as it's making fun of everything. And that I think that's the mark of a good satire. It needs to punch in all directions.
Yeah, and the biggest thing too, it sounds like it's unique as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just funny, punching in all directions. Just you hitting that home so much, it's just having flashbacks.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? Something else the internet was very upset about.
What the hell movie was that?
Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up, that's right. But the movie sounds very unique, which is nice. And when it could have been so cookie cutter, basically, that's cool that you went and saw something different.
Yeah.
And you were in a crowd with a good feeling, a good vibe, which is nice these days, really, in theater.
Absolutely, yeah. And that doesn't affect my judgment of the movie, but it really was the crowd was alive.
Yeah.
I can't say that for Oppenheimer. People were ducking in and out of the seats just to see, like, oh, do I actually go to the bathroom here? Right. I don't know. Oh, man. So, but yeah, I can't stress that enough. I really need to drive that home, though, is that, it just follows its own path and doesn't waver onto a line of annoying or anything.
You've got me excited.
Yeah.
You've got me excited.
I'm telling you, Barbie is one to pay attention to.
The uniqueness of it is nice and different and surprising.
Absolutely.
Because we don't get a lot of that.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Barbie world and the real world, while she does get to the real world and spends time in the story there, it's not your typical fish out of water, like I said. You know, the majority of the time in Barbie, the majority of the time is in Barbie world. And in lesser hands, this would have been the reverse. The reverse would have happened, and Barbie would have been getting her character arc in the real world. This movie avoids any cliches like that, and best of all, spends most of the time in this ridiculous pink Barbie set. That set work is probably my last highlight. Barbie World is yet another. It is something else. It really looks like those Dr. Seuss movies in the 2000s, like Cat in the Hat and Grinch, that the set itself looks so intentionally cartoonish and so plastic and probably like not great to touch.
Right.
In like a hot studio. But here it was so refreshing because it's used as a premise for jokes. That's where I mean it's using the toy concepts in the writing like a Lego movie does. And like a Lego movie is smart by doing, in that they take a look at what the toy is, how people play with the toy, what the toy means to the demographic.
Really blowing up the Barbie dollhouse.
Yeah,
and just getting that's cool.
It's all this cheap pink plastic, nothing has walls, nothing has windows, and that plays into setups for jokes very creatively. So I was just in love with it. The best of all, there's no CGI used in the set works. There's miniatures, there's actual Barbie toys used, like when she gets in the car, it's like a real Barbie.
Okay.
Felt a little bit Wes Anderson-ish. Definitely the symmetry on screen felt a little Wes Anderson-ish. But man, let me tell you, it takes what otherwise would be, again, like you make this in the 2000s. I think that toy Barbie world was probably like a budget-saving device. Here, it uses it as
you can just picture it how terrible and cookie cutter it would be. You really can.
Exactly. So, and again, I can't stress enough. Best of all, there's no CGI or limited CGI.
That's huge.
Yeah, there was an interview with Gerwig that I saw that apparently they wanted to make Margot Robbie's feet CGI, and I was just like, oh my god.
Oh god, to come across like plastic, probably shiny.
But no thanks. And I'm glad that it once again just avoided so many pitfalls, all of the pitfalls specifically that I expected and would have bet money on this film making.
So you really didn't go into this with like reviews or anything like that too?
Oh, no.
Good.
No.
You get me excited here, Vin.
Absolutely.
I have to say. Not that I was a downer on this film.
Sure.
I'm just coming from a spot. I've heard very good things, but have heard bad things.
Yeah.
Heard a little bit of Femicy's things.
Sure.
And I think overall was feeling your thing. Your way of walking into it, not really
Is this just going to be corporate?
Or knowing what to exactly.
Or, yeah.
Okay.
I was sensitive to the corporate aspect. I was certainly sensitive to the feminist aspect as well, but it is, I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a story about feminism, but through the satire is able to, I mean, I don't want to really talk about spoilers, but equally give Ken a little bit of an arc, and equally give a little bit of story development to the males, if you will.
That's good. It doesn't beat you. It's not pushing a message. It's not beating you over the head with something. It's trying to be a good movie, first and foremost, it's trying unique and cool.
Yeah, it's trying to tell a story of Barbie going through an existential crisis, which is great, Honestly, though, my concerns were avoided with this. There is a brief Chevy car placement that was a bit tacky. Will Ferrell's basically plays the same character as he did in the Lego movie. So, I don't get me wrong. There are small critiques that I have, but like they cloned Tyrone, I feel the package was so unique. The experience was so driven home that they were minor points. They were nothing that
was holding it back for you.
Yeah, there was nothing substantial there. This could have been so corporate or so bad or so eye-rolling or so anything, but instead it rides the line perfectly. And I have to give it props for being one of the most unique comedies of the year, and certainly one of the best. We're going to go ahead and give Barbie an 80 on the dot.
Wow, what a good week.
I'm telling you, it was a good week.
An 80. Oh, man, I bet you had no thought of walking out of there with an 80.
Right. It was such a good time. So smart.
Wow.
I
got to go see it this weekend then.
Yeah.
I almost saw it by myself last night, and now I'm very upset I didn't now.
I think I would have been upset if you did. You're going into Barbie, you gotta go. You can't go by yourself into Barbie.
Oh, you didn't go by yourself?
No. Oh. You gotta go with at least some pink on you.
I would have went. Wow, 80% for Barbie. Okay, I mean, we're doing okay with comedies this year. I think we actually have a slew.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, we might actually have a little nest there.
And definitely before the end of the year, I want to try to do like a Judd Apatow type of
Oh, you were saying
study.
that, yeah. I'll tell you what, wow. The Wild Bunch, Barbie, these are huge shocks.
Yeah. It's a good week.
I can't believe you gave it an 80.
I told you it was a good week. I'm telling you this. And this also couldn't be farther than the Crimes of the Future episode of how dark and dystopian that was.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But similar quality that I was just so in love with almost all of the films.
Wow.
And here, definitely in love with all the films.
80% for Barbie. I got to watch it. I have to watch it. You didn't even give What's Its Face that much. An 80%.
What?
It covers both sides, the comedy.
Don't Look Up.
Yeah, Don't Look Up.
Yeah. Don't Look Up wasn't as funny as Barbie.
I think you gave that like a 70, I don't know, high 70s. No?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Good week. Good week so far.
Good week.
All right, Barbie. Let's go, Barbie. We're going to keep on going here. For the big explosive film here. Big 3 hours on the dot. Let's get into it right away. This is Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, Vin. I'm sure you saw it at IMAX.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Sigh of relief.
I was fully planning on going to see it. It didn't work out. I couldn't go see it. Very upset about it. But I think I have 2 movies to go see this week now because I got to go see Barbie this week.
You should do the double feature.
I think I'm
5 hours.
Yeah.
I did not do the double feature. If that robs me of some credibility,
don't worry about it.
I apologize. But
was already going to see Oppenheimer on Saturday now this weekend, so I got to add Barbie. But regardless,
excellent.
Oppenheimer. Let's get into it. How do we tackle it? How'd you like it?
Well, let's start with just a little bit of the hype train, and I feel like Oppenheimer, it's such a colossal movie, and I mean it's a lot to grapple with.
Yeah.
In so many different ways to grapple with it. I'm just going to kind of be fluid with my thoughts and kind of go through it. And I want to start with that hype train that pulled up with this. After Nolan's aspirations to bring the theater back with Tenet and what largely flopped, it felt like the teaser of Oppenheimer was already being played before movies. Like it felt like that autumn after Tenet, like Oppenheimer was already being teased with that countdown, whatever.
Right.
The cast was so extensive. The subject matter had such gravitas to it, and all of it supercharged by the internet long before Barbenheimer was even coined. I feel like Nolan has a very definitive following online of just lovers of his films, and I can't say I hate on that because I love Nolan's films as well.
Yeah.
I can understand when people critique him and they don't like certain aspects, how loud his films are. This is not escaping that. This is a very loud film. But it really is. I mean, the internet hype machine has been brewing for Oppenheimer for such a long time.
It has been. And I think, like, seriously, for the past year at least, where it has been openly talked about a lot.
Yeah.
As far as this year, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, believe the hype because Oppenheimer is stellar. I'm a little bit conflicted on its role as a story versus a biographical film or a biopic. I do have a slight personal bias with this. Oppenheimer has been a historical figure that I've been fascinated with ever since writing a paper on him back in another life in college. It feels like another life now. So I'm very aware of all aspects of this story and where it goes. And why I bring this up is because I was a little bit concerned that was my love of this film skewed in that type of way because I was recognizing the slew of characters that are thrown in without a lot of explanation, especially government characters in this.
I feel that could go either way. Yes, I feel like you just in the know can connect to it better. I feel like it also, you walking into the movie, it could hurt it, you knowing so much about the story already.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it definitely could have gone both ways. So, I don't know. I'm very curious of what someone that literally doesn't know anything about Oppenheimer thinks of this film, especially in like the last hour or so.
Right.
But Oppenheimer himself is a poetically tragic man whose history is in 2 directions, before and after the bomb. Nolan actually reflects this in his story presentation and editing here, which we will touch on in a little bit. But for a biopic, which side do you show? The scientific breakthroughs and the war effort leading up to the atomic bomb, or the decades of political destabilization that comes from atomic weapons existing? Nolan undoubtedly chooses the correct answer, and you show both. That's where you get the 3-hour film. For the audience to understand why Oppenheimer is such a tragic and tortured figure through history, we have to see how his invention warped the world around it, and in addition to his brilliance creating it. So this brings up the 3-hour runtime. Circling back to feeling conflicted, that last hour of the film becomes so heavy in political and legal plot threads that I just wonder if it will not only lose someone not familiar with the history, but also be almost deliberately confusing of how many characters and many actors show up, feel like they have importance, but really are just one piece in Oppenheimer's story.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. I'm just very curious of what the type of experience of that will be. Like that as well, like with Barbie, I noted, it is about Oppenheimer directly. There's a big cast here, but focus, and then even my kind of critical analysis of it, it's about Oppenheimer here. And Cillian Murphy does a wonderful job. I feel that if he doesn't get the Oscar for this, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, the talk around it, now in execution, and the actors now coming out talking about, I mean, what Robert Downey Jr. saying that he's never seen another actor sacrifice as much as he saw Cillian Murphy.
Wow.
You know, he didn't go to dinners with all the actors when they were filming because it was just like the weight on his shoulders to get this character right in filming. So he just like avoided the dinners and he just was in his own mindset.
Wow.
I heard total dedication to trying to get this character right.
Yeah. And I mean, it's nothing more than brownie points, but boy, does he really look like the father of the atomic bomb. I mean, Oppenheimer's a creepy dude, especially post World War II. He becomes very gaunt. He becomes
check out some YouTube
skeleton-like
videos.
Almost, which is, I mean, I got to be honest, I always found him to be cool for that reason. You know, that was my surface level fascination with him. I mean, talk about a role made for an actor. Cillian has always had this type of aesthetic to him, this gauntness to him.
I think Nolan knew he wanted to do this film for like a long time and always had Cillian kind of in the back of his mind.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And talk about a culmination of their partnership over the years as well. Scarecrow. He was in Inception, of course.
Dunkirk.
Yep, absolutely. Let's talk about some of the editing and story structure, though, because I think it's really where Nolan shines in this. Nolan is no stranger to illustrating structure in his movies. This is probably his trademark if we did a full study, but in my head, 2000's Memento is probably the best example of this, that there is a meta structure to how the story plays out and shown through his editing and what scenes were shown. If I had to take a stab at the structure of this film, only seeing it once, here's where the food analogy comes in. I'd almost call the editing like a spiral or an onion, with the atomic bomb being the center point of it. Now, strategically, the story jumps around his life, first showing us some of the earliest, but also the latest moments of his life, if you will, the onion, the outer layer of the onion, or the outer layer of the spiral.
We're with you, we're good.
You're bearing with me. But as the film progresses, these time jumps and the intensity of the plot increases as we draw closer and closer to the bomb. The closer we get to seeing the Manhattan Project, the more we are seeing events immediately following its completion, the inner layer of the onion and the spiral.
I see what
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's.
I'm throwing it out there. That's my genuine thoughts on it. I have no idea if that's true to Nolan's plan or his actual intention in the structure, but that's how we're shown events. It's earliest and latest, and as we're getting closer and closer, we're seeing the events immediately
before
and immediately
It's like you
after.
stretch out a rubber band.
Yeah.
And you have the two ends is what you're seeing, and then as you snap it back and release it, it's just getting closer and closer to those two ends.
Absolutely. And the center point being, of course, the defining feature of Oppenheimer's life.
I like that. And it's still, I have to say, because I was like, how is he really going to mess with time in this one? What is Nolan going to do to really mess up the clock? Even though there's obviously a ticking clock in the film. That's not good enough for Nolan. No way. So that's how he kind of does it. Okay.
Absolutely.
I like it.
And I think it's brilliant because though The Last Hour still is a lot of that political and legalese, and it's a lot, I enjoyed it, but I feel like it gives that side energy where in the wrong hands, in the wrong execution, that would be the kryptonite, an hour-long
courtroom scene, which you can hate.
Yeah, exactly. And then it would just kill the momentum, and I don't care how tragic they would make it. It would just kill the momentum of the film.
So true.
Especially for how Nolan likes to build his endings, the rising, Hans Zimmer score.
It's so true. 3 hours, such a great layering technique.
Yeah, absolutely.
To keep everybody just still there, still engaged.
So we got tension lasagna for Mission Impossible. We got the onion for Nolan.
I will say, I don't know if the onion metaphor works.
Okay. You like spiral?
It has to be spiral almost.
Oh, okay.
Well, an onion is peeling of layers. And what you're talking about, that's not what you're talking about.
Well, in the sense that the events of earliest and latest that the story is tackling are tackled first. And then as we're getting closer, we're experiencing events closer right before and immediately after to,
Okay, all right.
the Manhattan Project itself.
All right, I'm there.
So maybe spot. We'll throw out the food analogy. Sorry, Glenn and Carol. My interpretation of the structure aside, though, editing is the real highlight here. It completely avoids any pitfalls of being a soulless, empty biopic by the books. This could have just been build up to the Manhattan Project, and then what is happening after in Oppenheimer's life, and really had me thinking back to the highlights of the Inarritu study that you can take a straightforward story, and it's all in how you present it. Specifically, Babel, I think, would be an example of that, or 21 Grams. It's all in the execution of the editing style, and Nolan is clocked in on this. If there's anything easing that 3-hour runtime, it's a kind of rhythm that scenes all have. Half of that is because of these editing choices, and the other half is in an ever-present soundtrack that plays nearly over every scene.
Okay. What is it?
It's the sound. It's the score.
Oh, okay.
That is just played constantly.
Because in Dunkirk, it's just his ticking.
Right.
Yeah. It's the ticking of his watch.
Yeah.
Which I don't normally mind with him.
No. I think that's why both of us are a fan of Nolan.
Yeah.
If there is something levied as a critique of all of his films, though, is just how loud and how scenes are not left in silence. He always is adding in these bombastic scores. Previously with Hans Zimmer.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Not Zimmer, this one.
Oh, yeah. But exciting. Continuing their partnership from Tenet, Ludwig Göransson does an excellent job in composing the score for this film, and might even beat out his work on The Mandalorian, which, if anyone knows me, is near and dear to my heart. I really like Göransson's work on that. Göransson does borrow some motifs from Dunkirk, incorporates that ticking clock into the music.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Works in a lot of the score, works in a lot of the scenes. But best of all, he introduces a foreboding radiation crackle in a similar way, increasing as the project looms closer and closer to completion. So don't get me wrong, I think the soundtrack is incredible. It was one of the best moments for me. Listening back in my note writing process, I put a lot of specific tracks aside just to revisit. I think it's dynamite, but this problem is on steroids for the people that don't like Nolan.
If it doesn't hit for you already.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't like Nolan already, because of these elements of how loud his movies are and how they don't let scenes breathe, this is going to be a terrible experience for you, honestly.
Wow, and do you know those people that straight up just don't really like him?
I do, and I can also understand it. I personally like it,
right?
But I can definitely understand it. That it's the same thing that I say with Razzle Dazzle. It's ultimately a distraction of performances. I feel is what the critique is after. But the problem here is that every single scene, almost to the point of being ridiculous, cannot be left alone more than a 2-minute stretch. Right. There is music playing over this constantly. It is a 3-hour music video. And granted, it's not licensed songs. It's this beautiful score that Göransson is structurally aware of, and is aware of whatever type of metastructure that Nolan is making in these editing processes. Boy, is it, you're not left alone with these characters. So I would say, personally, I think the ends justify the means. The result is a snappier pace to a 3-hour film. which is well needed in a movie about scientists talking in rooms. So maybe that's the right call, but it was just very noticeable, and I just feel like critics of that loud style, even if you're not, I feel it's going to be noticed in this one.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Beyond that, I don't have much more I want to say. I think there are some cast surprises in this that need to be experienced on their own, both for who shows up and the performances that are knocked out of the park in this. I will say, without a doubt, this is a career performance for Cillian Murphy, like I said, and would be shocked if he does not get the Oscar for this. My final thoughts are, I would call this film great because of the gravitas it treats the subject matter with. As it's said in the film, this is the culmination of 3 centuries worth of physics. It treats concepts like the revolution in physics, quantum mechanics, and the sheer impossibility of pulling off this project with wonder and amazement, while it equally reflects on how the history itself was warped around Oppenheimer's creation, yet leaves him in a limbo of renown and infamy. We're going to go ahead and give Oppenheimer an 84.
Whoa! No.
You thought it was going to be...
I thought it was, yeah. Wow.
I
84, though.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had a week this good.
I think so.
As far
that's
as
what I was saying.
3 80s,
It's
the
a
other
big
2 in the
boy week.
70s?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
It's a big boy week.
Why not the 85 or above?
I think runtime, and I think a little bit of the rule for me for 85 and above is I watch it twice, and I just was simply not able to watch this twice. In addition to concerns of, I think this might lose a lot of people once that last hour comes around.
Okay.
It's just, it plays out
'Cause
like
you
a
wouldn't-
biography to a laser point.
Right.
So
Okay, no, I like that. You would never say, just because it's 3 hours, I didn't get a chance to get around to watching it a second time.
no.
Like if you really wanted to watch it a second time, but just like couldn't make it because it's 3 hours.
And maybe I didn't want to, but that's not saying that this is anything bad. I mean, obviously that 85 is a threshold for us, but I mean, this is a phenomenal
It's
movie.
a more of, this can sit where it's, you watch it once,
Yeah.
it stays with you, it's good for a bit.
Absolutely.
You'll pick it up a little after. I mean, it is a monumental movie.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Wow, 84% for Oppenheimer. This is fantastic. You had a good
I
theater.
told you.
You had a good theater run this weekend.
It was a great week. Believe the hype
Wow.
for Barbenheimer.
What day did you see this?
I saw this on Sunday when
You did?
yep.
Okay. Very good. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I can't wait. Maybe I'll give a quick report after this weekend.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry I couldn't get it watched, but I mean, we're running along anyway. It would have been
right.
adding to it. What, looking at these scores, Vin, is there any last notes? Oh, wait a second. What am I saying? I can't let you go until we talk about Matt Damon a smidge.
Oh, right.
Is Matt Damon going to ruin the movie for me?
No,
for the shoes.
Are both concerned of Matt Damon looking a little bit cringy from trailers?
Yeah.
Definitely cut out. There's actually was a good amount of trailers that is just not shown in the films.
Good.
Like extra footage.
I feel like Chris Nolan really has a hold on how his trailers look.
Yep.
And that's what I was hoping for.
Absolutely. So
Thank God, even he knew what was going on with Matt Damon in
yeah.
those scenes. That's the best news of it all. I can breathe.
right. Because it was something about that one line he gives in the trailer. Like,
Way
"That's the
too
most
Martian.
important," You know,
Way too Martian. Way too easy. You're on a Nolan set now, sir.
Yeah. But I would say again, if there is anything to actually seeing Barbenheimer, the double feature, it's in how the cast is used in both of these.
Yeah.
They're both very singular to one performance, but they're also huge as far as cast, and like the supporting cast is amazing.
And honestly, and what a fun, and for how unique these stories are, how different. Like, this is the most wild double header you could do. This is the most the most wild.
Yeah.
I love it, Vin. Some of these movies were very long. Appreciate you watching all these movies. Appreciate no more other notes, or do you want to?
No, I'm good to go.
Okay, well, we'll just pick things right back up next week. No, actually, next week we have had.
Special in the holster for...
We have been dying to when should we release this special? We love this special. This is so much research went into this one for Vin, folks. Enjoy it next week. Vin's going to be out of town. It is still great, new, fresh content. And honestly, it might be one of the better shows of the year.
Absolutely.
Just because it went into it and kind of the guide of the watching list that we give. Vin, thank you so much for watching these. Thanks for stopping by here. Thanks for these great scores. Folks at home, we will run it down one more time. We have High Noon with a 70%. The Wild Bunch with an 82, They Clone Tyrone with a 74, Barbie with an 80, and finally, Oppenheimer with an 84%. Folks, we thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the special next week, and then we will see you back here at the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you receive from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, folks, but we want to be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.